Hello, everybody. This is Chris Rawley. I'm the CEO and founder of Harvest Returns, and today we're going to talk about how you can cultivate the future of agriculture by investing in farms and ranches and other agricultural related businesses. Before we get going, this is not a offer to sell any kind of securities. We're just going to talk about Harvest Returns. If you would like to learn more about the specific offerings on our platform, you can register for free, and I will talk about what that process looks like. So we'll get going with a little bit about our company, and then we'll move into more specifics about why you might want to invest in agriculture with Harvest Returns. So we were established back in 2016. My co-founder, Austin Menace, and I decided that we wanted to invest in a farm. We really didn't have the resources to do it at the time. And we started looking around for different mechanisms by which you could invest in a farm. And back then, there weren't a lot of ways to do that. You'd have to go out and buy a farm directly or invest in a fund with maybe $100,000, $200,000 minimum, or invest in a publicly traded REIT, which turns out are pretty well correlated with the stock market. So we built this platform ourselves to connect farmers and ranchers with investors like you. We are both veterans, military, Army, Navy, got backgrounds in finance and technology, and we've got a team of people with agriculture experience and private equity and accounting and marketing and you name it. And what we do is bring these offerings to the platform. We do what's called a Regulation D SEC exemption, 506B and C, which means primarily you have to be an accredited investor to come into our offerings, but we do have the 506B offerings, where you can come in with as little as $5,000 and be an unaccredited, sophisticated investor. So as I said, we've been doing this for a while. We've raised over $30 million, and we have most importantly, distributed or returned 7.1 million to our investors. And we'll go through on the following slides why we think agriculture is a great investment. So the first thing to understand is that the food system is changing, especially in the past, I'd say, decade, 2 decades or so. No longer do people just simply want to eat whatever is put in front of them. They have very strong preferences. And this is partially caused by social media and the internet spreading many different diets. Some of them are faddish and some of them are legitimate, but for various reasons, people are really interested in what they're eating. They're interested in how their food is produced, who is producing it, what's in it, and lots of interesting diets out there like paleo, of course, vegans, vegetarianism. Everybody's got some interesting dietary preferences. And because of that, as you'll see on the next slide, the agriculture system is having to change rapidly. So that's also a factor of technology. Agriculture is one of the more conservative industries, and technology has been slow to adapt, but I'd say in the last decade or so, it has definitely improved. And not only, as we'll see later in the presentation, is technology important to agriculture, sustainability is very important. And this is also something that's being driven by consumer trends, where people want to make sure that the food that they eat is being produced sustainably. So at the same time, many of us saw, either during COVID-19 a few years ago, or even more recently, some supply chain shocks that impacted the food that we purchase, whether that's labor issues with production, shipping issues with bringing in a lot of the food that we eat is from overseas, exported or imported, and also, of course, exported from American farmers. And various supply chains have been stressed. So fortunately, there are some solutions to that, and investing is a part of that. So this is why we're bullish on agriculture, and essentially why we started this platform. The first is just this sheer demographics of agriculture. And despite some populations contracting, the world population continues to increase. So it could be as much as 10, we just passed 8 billion. We could be adding another 2 billion in the next 20, 30 years or so. And because of that, there's more food that's going to need to be produced, and it's going to need to be produced sustainably. And at the same time, and maybe more importantly, as populations become wealthier across the planet, and they are becoming wealthier even in the developing world, people tend to consume more calories and more protein. So as an industry, it's the one industry that's essential to everyone on earth. Everyone has to eat. from a return profile, agriculture is very interesting. You can see in this graph, and this is just one piece of the agriculture industry, which is very vast, but U.S. farmland, and that's measured by what's called the INCRE Farmland Index, has outpaced, the returns from that have outpaced stocks, real estate, gold, bonds, and other investment over the same time period, the past few decades. And it's also safe diversification. So agriculture is generally land-based, so there's a real estate component to it. There's a land component to it. Even some of the more specific, specialized types of agriculture we talk about, like indoor agriculture. And the final thing that we like about agriculture is to improve that food system. So that's whether that's producing food more profitable for the farmer, which is one of our missions, is to make sure that our farmers are profitable. Most U.S. farmers are family farmers. The number of farmers in the United States is decreasing. Farmers are having a hard time accessing capital, which is why we exist, to help them get access to flexible financing, whether that's debt or equity. And you'll see more specifics on some of our investments on the next few slides. And improving the food system by producing food more sustainably. So a little bit about our offerings. We've done equity, which is essentially you're buying shares in an operating company of a farm or a ranch. Debt, of course, is lending money. So we do private loans, private debt, and then we've done convertible debt. So this is generally more for startup agriculture technology companies. And this is the graph on the right is just one of our return profiles where we've had exited investments. We've exited several investments, and this is on the debt side. And this shows that on average, the past 3 years, which is kind of where our track record starts, we've got exceeded the returns from the S&P 500, which is around 9% for the same time period between 2020 and 2022. And we're on track to do that again this year. Of course, that doesn't mean we can keep this track record. Past returns aren't indicative of future results, but it shows you an example of what our returns might look like. So people also ask, what's the return profile on a typical equity investment? And that could be north of 20% internal rate of return. And when you do make an investment with us, you should expect your money to be locked up anywhere from 1 to 10 years. These are illiquid private investments. And there's something called the illiquidity premium, which is because our investments are not publicly traded, there's actually a premium for that because it's an inefficient market. And when you do invest with us, you're investing in the form of a partnership, and you'll receive a tax form K-1. That's a pretty common question we get from new investors. So we have several specialized, what we call verticals, the types of offerings that we do that you really can't find anywhere else. And we're pretty proud of that. There are some other investment platforms out there. Most of them are investing purely in row crops, and those are great if you want exposure to the commodity market. But if you want kind of exposure to what we call the future of agriculture, there's more specialized types of verticals, and this is one of them. So controlled environment agriculture. The thing that's driving this, there's a couple of factors. One is that most of the leafy greens we eat in the United States are produced in a single county in California, Central Valley, California, Monterey County, and they're shipped across the country. So whether you live on the East Coast or the deep South or wherever, the lettuce you're eating was most likely grown in a field in Northern California. And because of new technologies such as LED lighting and computer-controlled irrigation methods and fertilization methods, farmers are starting to grow indoors, and there's different types of indoor ag. Some of the raises we've done are vertical farms. So these are urban or suburban farms on a smaller scale that are producing food, leafy greens or herbs or even mushrooms to sell to that local market. And there's also larger scale greenhouses, which are designed to be large scale production facilities under acres of glass, and they sell to the wholesale market with regional distributors. And this is a growing market. As you can see, it's growing at a rate of about a third a year. There's been lately, you've seen some instances of, if you follow the news in the ag space, you've seen some instances of indoor farms going out of business. And so this industry is undergoing some uproar. I'm happy to say that all the farms we've invested in the past 4 years or so in this space are still operating. And we anticipate that as more lessons are learned by these producers and in the indoor farming market, technology increases, you're going to see many more of these farms across the country. So our other specialty that we are take a lot of pride in is our livestock operators. This is for some people it's controversial. For us, it's just common sense. Demand for grass-fed beef, especially, and we like grass-fed, is definitely increasing. And when I say grass-fed, we're every cow, essentially every animal, ruminant animal is eating grass. So every cow is grass-fed for at least some portion of their life, but grass-finished is where the animal spends basically its entire life on grass. And we've done all parts of this industry, including the technology side. So we're really bullish on livestock. Much of this grass-fed beef is imported from outside the United States. So you're essentially shipping frozen carcasses across the ocean. And so there's a lot of room for these North American ranchers. And we've got ranchers across the Great Plains, in the Southeast, in Georgia, in Texas, all over the country, essentially. This is one of the reasons this is controversial, because there's a lot of myths that are out there about livestock, and many of those are produced, as one would imagine, by the plant-based meat industry. So there's like marketing arms of those meat industries. And it talks about how they're putting out a narrative that beef is simply bad for the planet. And when you really get down to study the way their analysis has been done and what they leave out, there's a lot of essentially misinformation that's been spread. When done correctly, animal agriculture is one of the healthiest forms of agriculture, not just in the nutritional value of the actual meat produced, but for the environment. So essentially, imagine what was happening in North America 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. There were grazing ruminants, except in those cases it was bison and elk, not cattle for the most part. And there were millions and millions of them, and they would run together in herds and trample the grass and eat the grass and spread their manure on the grass. And essentially these tall, waist-high prairie grasses that used to cover most of the Great Plains of North America were natural carbon sinks. The roots go deep underground and they capture all that carbon. And the regenerative ranchers we work with are doing this exact same things, but using cattle to mimic those sort of ancient grazing practices. And the other thing that you hear is that, oh, we're wasting all this land on livestock. Well, rather than say plant-based agriculture. And again, I'm not bashing plant-based agriculture, because there's a room for all kinds of agriculture. And we love all the farmers. But most of the farms that are out there are using a different kind of land than most of the cattle grazers, and that's just simply because the grazing land is unsuitable for other types of crops. It's too rocky, it's too dry, you name it. So we like regenerating the soil. We like producing high quality beef, and most importantly for our investors, we like making a profit doing it, as you can see from our previous return slide. Next category is agriculture technology. As I mentioned, agriculture has been somewhat slow to adapt technology. We're, depending on how you count, we're undergoing a third or fourth agricultural revolution right now. The last big industrial revolution for agriculture was in the 1950s or so, mid last century, with the application of large-scale chemicals, which was great for increasing yields and feeding the planet. Not so great for necessarily taking care of the planet. Some of the chemicals used in agriculture were not great. We're getting better at that. Some of the chemicals ran off into the water, and the way the ground was treated was not great. So agriculture technology, in addition to these sort of improved regenerative ag practices, is one of the ways that farmers are helping to fix the planet. And what we do at Harvest Returns is we find companies that have unique technologies, and I'll go over a few of those, but unique technologies, and we write them at an early stage. So these are companies that have showed some traction, that either have small amounts of revenue or maybe about to bring a product to market with the potential for high growth. And of course, with high growth companies, there's a high risk for potential, but essentially these are angel investing or venture capital type of investments, but there's the possibility for a large payoff. And three of the types of agriculture technology companies that we've invested in, one involves what's called precision agriculture. So this is the use of technologies such as the Internet of Things and sensors in the ground or airborne sensors that help a farmer understand what's happening in his or her field, so that they can apply water more precisely, apply fertilizers more precisely, understand where there's disease conditions. We've invested in a company that has sensors that are placed in vineyards to measure smoke taints from wildfires. And precision agriculture, all this data is stored in the cloud. There's sometimes an artificial intelligence component to it. So it's a really high growth area of ag tech right now. Another area that we like is robotics. This is essentially the use of robots in all stages of agriculture, whether that's the planting, the harvesting, the sensing, out in the fields or indoor. There's a lot of course, labor issues in agriculture right now, and robotics is one of the ways that we can mitigate some of those labor shortages in agriculture. And then there's biologics. This is a new area as well, and this is using biology rather than chemicals to do some of the things that chemicals have previously done during that last agricultural revolution. Now people are using some techniques that fertilize, whether it's a fertilizer, better crops for harsh conditions, you name it. Biologics and genetics is another future piece of ag tech. And then just, one piece of it, the autonomous agriculture equipment market, which includes robotics, that's growing at a 21% clip currently. So that's why we like this market, and why we think that our investors might want to invest in some of these early stage ag tech companies. All right, so hopefully we've convinced you agriculture is a good investment by now, and maybe got your interest enough to register on our platform. And that's really the first step, is come on the Harvest Returns platform. You just go to harvestreturns.com, sign up. There's a little button that says sign up, and you set up your profile and you fill out some personal information. And the reason, a lot of people ask, well, why do you have me put my social security number? Why do you have me put this? Well, the SEC and other regulations require us to do what's called a know your customer before we take money, to make sure all that money is compliant. We do have a third-party compliance provider that makes sure that we stay within regulations. And additionally, since there's taxes involved with any investment, you're going to have to put some personal information. So you're going to see, when you get on, you're going to see a screen that looks sort of like the one on the left. Those are some of our previous investments, and you'll be able to review whatever investments live at any given time. We have 2 or 3 investments. And again, you can invest anywhere between $5,000 on up to the maximum number that you'd like to invest. And you are going to read through all the offering documents. You'll get a chance to listen to a webinar from the producer in most cases, where we've got a farmer essentially pitching you on his operation, his business. And then you can fund your investment, and you fund either with ACH for your bank account, or you can wire us money if you prefer to do that. And then what happens is we raise money, we pool all these investments together, we write that producer a single check, and then we essentially close the investment, and that money is now put to work, whether it's starting a new farm, growing an existing operation, helping increase sales, buying new technologies. The producer we work with use those funds for various investments on their own operation. And then you get to keep up with them. You'll get a quarterly update, you'll get annual financial updates, and at the end of the year, you'll get that Form K-1. And most importantly is you will receive distributions. Of course, not every investment's gonna make the return expected, but many of them will, and many of them will exceed what you are expecting. And then at some point or another, the goal on each of these is to get your principal back and something on top of that until the exit. And again, those durations are anywhere from a year to up to 10 years or so. All right. And with that, we'd love to hear from you. You can visit us on social media. You can send us an email, info@Harvest Returns. You can give us a call. You can ask us any questions. We'd be happy to have one-on-one calls with you and get to know you a little bit better. So feel free to reach out to us with any methods you'd like, and we'd love to get you to diversify your portfolio and cultivate the future of agriculture at the same time with Harvest Returns. Thank you.